Hello and welcome to 100% Real with Ruby. Today is just a mini solo because I feel something that is widely unspoken about is the phases of how you go about changing your lifestyle and getting to your goals. Because the people we see on social media, or even coaches, trainers, whatever, they've been doing this. It's their lifestyle. And a lot of us forget how we started. And one of the biggest components in this is that sometimes you do need to push a little bit harder. You do need to make a lot more sacrifices. You do need to say no to a lot more things. Even though now we're trying to preach this balance mentality, the thing is, balance looks different on everybody, and it's hard to find a balance that makes you feel like your best and allows you to perform at your best if you haven't even yet got into the consistency and the actual feeling what it's like to actually have the habits in place, feeling what it's like to actually start eating good, to start training and moving your body so you know what it feels like to feel strong, to feel capable, to push yourself past your limits. We don't allow ourselves to truly see what we're capable of, and we adapt to this normal of feeling like shit, and we feel like something's wrong with us, like our hormones are broken, like we aren't like other people. And then when we see something working for someone else, it's not that we don't trust that process, it's more so that we don't trust ourselves. We've never been able to prove it to ourselves that we can do something, and maybe we've tried many things before and we've failed. And this is where really getting on board with a program or a coach, I would say do not get on board with the program. Make sure you do have that support and someone who cares and listens and understands the psychology of things, because this is not about food. This is not about training, because if it was, everyone would already be consistent and doing their shit. It's deeper than that. And a lot of people do need therapy. And it's hard to actually use therapy unless you have something moving you in the direction that you want. I don't feel like therapy in itself, by itself, can be that beneficial for someone who wants to truly change their whole life. I feel like therapy in combination with health and fitness is where it's at. Because what you eat and how you move your body impacts so much of your life. And I don't feel like many people are willing to sit with the discomfort of how much their life is impacted by their current choices, their current thoughts, their current limiting beliefs. But to the point, there are different phases in life. And sometimes, think about it like juggling balls. You can't juggle 10 balls at once and focus on every single one of them. It's putting into perspective that there are going to be some rubber balls and there are going to be some glass balls. And the ones that are glass are the ones that you need to pay most attention to. And the ones that are glass are also the ones that are your priorities for that moment, because if you have more than 3 priorities, you have none. You need to focus on those the most. You need to make them, you need to be willing to sacrifice some things for those. And at first, you may need to tighten it up a little and do things that you don't want to do or that are uncomfortable for you to do, but that you need to do. Because sometimes what you need isn't exactly what you want. You need to start eating more vegetables. You may not want to. You need to start moving more, but you may not want to. You need to start slowing down and sitting with your emotions, but you probably don't want to. It's getting super clear on that and questioning your beliefs around certain things. But there is no incentive for you to change until you actually put that incentive there. And it can be a negative one or a positive one. A negative incentive is something that's like, if I don't do this, I'm going to have to, like, an example with a client, well, a new client, having to go on blood pressure meds, having to go, like, deal with all of her health issues because she wasn't willing to just move more and to get her body moving, to slow down. She was in the all or nothing perfectionist mentality, not wanting to eat her veggies, needing to have something so complicated and different every single meal. Like, you make it harder for yourself the more that you change things up. As much as you might hate keeping shit the same, that is how you create consistency. You earn your flexibility and you earn your variability. You do not earn food. You do not earn, like, earning food is one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. There are no such thing as cheat meals or treat meals. Food is food. You need to make it fit what you need to get to where you want to be. And if it fits those guidelines, anything can fit in there. And those guidelines include a minimum for plants, a minimum for your veggies and your fruit, a minimum for protein. Everything else takes a back seat. Yes, the carbs and the fats can play a role in it and be important, which I say they are important because fats are more easily stored as fats. Carbs are more beneficial for your energy. And a lot of people demonize carbs. And as much as I like to say you can let carbs and fats fall where they may, a lot of people aren't yet ready to just let it fall there. But at the same time, that might be what you need to actually develop consistency, because otherwise it's too hard for you to manage. So everyone is different. But carbs are more satiating. They allow you to feel more full and they can crush cravings. Fats don't do that. But some people have a massive fat tooth. Oils, butters, greasy things, cheeses. And it's not something indifferent from, like, the typical westernized diet. And a lot of people who think that carbs are bad or they're addicted to carbs usually is more fats than carbs. Even though the fat grams may be lower, the fat calories are higher, because every gram of fat is 9 calories. Every gram of carb is 4. And it can be 2 and it can be 3, depending on the fiber content, because fiber is 2 to 3 grams. So it's knowing what phase you are in life. And you don't have to be in a calorie deficit every single freaking day if you're struggling. Like, as long as you get that calorie deficit in a week, you are fine. And that is where a lot of people just pull the self-sabotage plug. If they can't be perfect, fuck it. Instead of, hey, maybe we can't stick to a calorie deficit today. Maybe we can't stick to a calorie deficit this whole bloody week. We're too scared to eat more. Pull yourself back up to maintenance. You are not going to undo any progress. And this is where transparency with your coach comes in, if you have one. Because you don't have to stay in a calorie deficit if it's not the season for you right now. If you're dedicated to it, but then all of a sudden something pops up and you weren't planning for that, like some work thing comes up, some family thing comes up, whatever it is, an injury, maybe you are best served getting your ass back up to maintenance instead of stressing yourself out more and actually mentally being in a calorie deficit but not physically being in one, because your body is so damn stressed out, and you're going to make it harder for yourself because your body will not be in an optimal place to lose fat if it is stressed out. And stress isn't just what you perceive, because sometimes we are so adapted to a high level of stress. Dieting in itself is a stress. And many people diet the wrong way, and they also have nutrient and vitamin deficiencies, which in itself is a stress. Many people don't chew their food. That's a stress. Because now your body needs to work harder to try to digest those foods. And your body in itself, when you're dieting, is already in a suboptimal place to break down and digest those foods. because it wants to save energy. It wants to shuffle its energy to what's actually keeping you alive. Your digestion doesn't really all that much keep you alive. So there's something to think about. When you're in a diet, it is more important for you to be chewing your food. You to be enhancing the digestive process as much as you can. And that's why people who chase calorie deficits for their whole life end up with gut issues. They end up with IBS. They end up with all of these different things that some functional medicine person's going to say you have SIBO. Like, yes, you may have something terribly wrong with your gut, but you don't need some massive thing to try to fix it. You do need lifestyle changes. You do need to make changes to the way that you eat. You do need to make changes to the way that you train. The way that they approach those whatever labels they want to put on it is the same as approaching any other chronic dieting issue. You don't need a magic pill for it. But there is one thing that does change with someone with a lot of gut issues compared to someone who doesn't have one when they've been chronically dieting. And that's the way you do your reverse diet. Because if all is well, you do not need to titrate your calories up 100 at a time or less. But if you have gut issues, or even if you psychologically can't imagine doing it, that is when you do need to be a lot more strategic with the way that you do your reverse diet. Because your gut isn't going to be able to tolerate it, but you don't want to be going too slow. At first, maybe, just to get your gut used to it. Just, like, also, those people that get themselves out of a deficit and start eating more food, this is why it's not just about the food, because if nothing else changes except the food, yeah, you'll adapt a little bit, but if you try to keep pushing it without addressing all the other factors, what goes in has to come out, otherwise it gets stored as fat. And I've had girls go from 1,300 all the way up to 2,000 without actually gaining fat. Note that I said fat, not weight. Without gaining fat. And I've had girls living off coffee, eating like 1,000 calories one day and maybe just one meal the other day, and living off coffee and energy drinks and adrenaline and all that shit. Going to eating a shitload of carbs and fueling her lifestyle. And her lifestyle was already active. So there wasn't really all that much we needed to change, just keep an eye on. Because it's not just about fueling your training. Fueling your training is exactly what gets people stuck, because you don't burn that many calories in training. So people think that they can out-train a bad diet or diet out the lack of training, which you can't. Because if you're not moving and if you're not active, that is very negative towards your health, your blood glucose management, your insulin management, blood pressure, heart, everything. Because muscle is health. It's longevity. It is an organ that releases hormones. And as does fat. But fat is toxic. It is a toxic site. It is where all toxins are stored. So, think about that. And I hope that helped. There is a season to everything. And sometimes you need to put more focus onto different glass balls. Life, family, work, whatever it is. And this is why a coach is not just for weight loss. And your goal should be more than just a number on a scale. Or aesthetics. Because that is what leads people to falling off track. To lack of motivation. To feeling like they're getting nowhere. Because they put all their focus into this one thing. Especially when it's the scale number, which you have zero control over. Which you have absolutely no ability not only to control, but the fact that there are so many variables that factor into it. So keep that in mind.